The EU foreign policy chief speaking in very blunt terms about what the response would be from NATO and the United States should there be a nuclear weapon used by the Russians in Ukraine. Here he is, listen to this.
Any nuclear attack against Ukraine will create an answer. Not a nuclear answer, but such a powerful answer from the military side that the Russian army will be inoculated, and Putin should not be bluffing.
How will those words be heard by the Kremlin?
Well, the Kremlin has heard those before. I mean, maybe not as directly. I think that he's really been quite overt in this, but that's certainly part of the what we understand to be the possible reaction by the United States, NATO, et cetera, to any use of nuclear weapons, and especially those tactical weapons that we've spoken about many times in the field in Ukraine. The West, and especially NATO, doesn't want to react and make the situation even worse by beginning an actual nuclear war. But they could really carry out extreme destruction of the Russian forces in the field with conventional weapons. And Putin, I am sure, because we've heard that, you know, there have been signals and not only signals, but direct warnings to Russia and to Putin that this is what could happen if you do that. So I'm sure it's no surprise to him. Is it going to stop him? Well, you know, that's the question. But it's a very serious threat.
Yeah, we're at a very delicate point here with all of this. It's someone likened it to the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the day. So I guess we're sort of in a similar place right now. Jill, as always, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh live in central Ukraine for us. What do we know about these latest strikes? This has been 4 or 5 nights in a row now of strikes against, in many cases, civilian locations.
Yeah, look, I think it's fair to say we are seeing a slightly different pattern, a new pattern possibly this week. Since the vast wave of strikes on Monday, there are persistent bids, it seems, to hit energy or other parts of infrastructure. But local officials, when it comes to Zaporizhzhia strikes, saying very little. I think there is a concern to not provide a readout of how damaging strikes have been, simply saying the energy infrastructure had been hit in one of the districts of Zaporizhzhia. No talk yet of injuries or precisely what kind of damage occurred. But this does appear to be something that Russia is trying to continually sustain during this week, certainly. The question still remaining, how many of these guided missiles do they actually have? And I should also point out that hitting civilian targets is nothing new. But one thing that is remarkable today is that Vladimir Putin has been in Kazakhstan for a meeting of regional countries. And he's made an interesting comment, not specifically about the Ukraine war, but saying that they need goodwill at this point. He says, everyone has goodwill, and we need to use this goodwill to the maximum in resolving conflicts. We must strive to find ways out of the current situation wherever it arises. Now, look, in the past, we've heard the Kremlin head say one thing and do the other, but we've now heard for a number of days this persistent noise from Moscow about diplomacy, about perhaps finding a way out of this. And given the pressure that Putin is under domestically, to make a public statement saying that goodwill could perhaps be required to find a way out of this situation, that is a change in tone, certainly. And over the past days, while they unleashed those wave of missiles, the nuclear rhetoric we'd heard in the past, that has lessened. The response from the West to what potentially might occur if Russia used a nuclear weapon, that has been very forceful and very public. You just heard the EU foreign policy chief there. So a change, certainly. We may hear more clear comments from Putin in Kazakhstan. He's meeting his Turkish counterpart there as well. But this is a new move towards diplomacy, possibly by Russia, and it's one that the West and Ukraine has been clear to reject because there is an absolute absence of trust about what Russia does at the diplomatic table. They've always used it in the past, most of the time, as a stalling mechanism, time to regroup. Winter is certainly coming here. Russia is in severe trouble on the battlefield. They've just, in fact, said they're going to evacuate civilians out of the southern city of Kherson because possibly supply lines are weak, or maybe the winter ahead will require greater fighting there. But a lot changing, and an odd message now from Vladimir Putin. Back to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Nick Payton-Walsh, for us in central Ukraine this morning.